think it is our role
Mhm.
as followers of Christ
Mhm.
to figure out how do we get involved in the things that the Lord is involved in.
Mhm.
Find out
Mhm.
where God's working and moving in
Mm.
this world and go join it.
Well, hey, friends, and welcome back to the Empowered Life podcast, where we believe that each one of us have been empowered to live a life of purpose and calling. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm honored to welcome Pastor Erik Erby. He is the senior pastor of Walnut Ridge Baptist Church. And y'all, this is a very mission minded church, and their mission is to love God, love others, and make disciples. It's a very clear but very powerful mission. And under Erik's leadership, Walnut Ridge has truly cultivated just this culture that doesn't just talk about their faith, they are living it. They see mission not just as something you do, but really as a lifestyle. And this is a church that is engaging both locally and globally, and they're stepping into the call of making disciples and really demonstrating their faith in some tangible ways. And so recently, Pastor Erik preached a message on the Shema, which comes from Deuteronomy 6. And when I saw it, it really resonated with me. And I thought, this is something I want to bring to you guys, because this is not just an ancient prayer that was said thousands and thousands of years ago, but it is really a blueprint for living an empowered life today. And it calls us to love God with everything that we are, not just in our beliefs, but in our daily actions and in our obedience. And so today we're going to explore what that looks like, how we live that out beyond just Sunday, beyond the church walls, and how loving God fully will naturally lead us to loving others too. And so I'm excited for this conversation. I think you're going to be inspired and encouraged. So Pastor Erik, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go to your church, but I know many people, some of my most favorite people in the world go to your church.
That's good. That's
Yes,
good.
and they are
It's better than the opposite.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But these are like salts of the earth people, like just ooze Jesus, and they are the real deal. They're living it out on the daily, and I think that speaks volumes about the way that your church is feeding your people and what y'all are doing at Walnut Ridge. So,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
Pastoring a church is really easy when you got great people,
Yeah.
and we do. We've got some really great people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know them and I agree. So I want us to start with just giving our listeners some context about you and tell us a little bit about who you are, your family, and maybe what led you into answering the call to be a pastor.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, you know, I've got the unique opportunity to be preaching in the church that I grew up in.
that's awesome. Hmm.
So my family actually came to Walnut Ridge in '92 when I was in the fifth grade, and yeah, so I kind of grew up. I became good friends with our previous pastor,
Hmm.
Randy Weeks, and that was kind of my intro into um, really ministry, getting to be close to him and see
Hmm.
what he did,
Hmm.
and just kind of walk closely with him. So much of my ministry today is because of the things that he poured
Mm,
into me,
that's awesome.
and just thankful for him and the role that he's played
Yeah.
for me personally. But
So you're the
um,
second person who said that about him. So
yeah,
that
yeah,
we're all about mentorship and the power of like pouring into another person,
yeah.
and sounds like that is something that was really close to
Well,
him.
Randy was extremely, if you know him, he's extremely relational. Like
Mhm.
it's a relational style of ministry, and so um, you'll see that's the only way I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the foyer when people get there. Like I
Yeah.
want to meet them. I want to be there as long as they're there
Yeah.
on a Sunday morning, just to get to know them and do that. But
Mhm.
I tell people I didn't set out to be a preacher.
Mhm.
I went to school and graduated college with a computer science degree. So I'm like
Mhm.
this kind of
Yeah.
closet nerd. But started a business when I got out of college. My dad and I started a business here in Mansfield,
Mhm.
um, it was a business, small business distribution company that God blessed in a lot of amazing ways. But towards the tail end of that, um, Randy, after hearing me speak at a at another ministry event kind of
Mhm.
thing, he asked me if I'd be interested in starting a service in our South Sanctuary
Mhm.
at the Ridge, and I tried to make a habit through my life of saying yes
Yeah.
whenever God gives me
Right.
opportunities
Mhm.
to speak of Him and to exalt His name,
Mhm.
and so we did that. That was, I think, 2014.
Mhm.
Started preaching at the
So
church.
you hadn't prior to that really thought about it or
Not really. I
yeah.
mean, right when my wife and I got married in 2006,
Mhm.
and we fell into, or maybe the ministry fell into our laps, but the
Mhm.
ministry of Young Life.
Mhm.
And so she and I led Mansfield Young Life
Mhm.
for several years, and um, it kind of scratched that itch for me. Like
Yeah.
I got to share God's word, tell them
Yeah.
about Jesus every week.
Mhm.
And looking back, those were, formative years. God was kind of honing my
Yeah.
ability to
Preparing you.
communicate
Yeah.
the gospel
Mhm.
and talk in different ways and connect with students, especially.
Mhm.
Um, but it wasn't until a little bit later when Randy was at that event, the fundraising event we had, that he came to me afterwards and he said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know what God was doing." And
Mm.
so again, he's a big part of my story. He came
Yeah.
along and said, "Let's
Yeah.
work on this
That's cool.
and see where God takes it." But I tell people, I'm the walking example of what you see in Scripture, like over and over and over again. When you look in Scripture, you see God taking like the least likely person
Mhm.
and doing
Mhm.
something for His kingdom,
Mhm.
in in such a way that everybody knows, like, this is
It's
God
gotta be
doing
God.
this. and
Right.
and I just feel like I'm the example of that, because I'm the guy that I didn't take the normal path.
Yeah.
I have 0 hours of seminary credit
Yeah.
to talk about or
Right.
boast about. Like,
Mhm.
you could line up people from here to Oklahoma that are more
Mhm.
qualified to
Mhm.
do what I get to do. But God, that's who He is.
That's what he does.
He
Yeah.
takes us, and we don't necessarily have to be qualified.
Yeah.
We just have to be willing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I love that. I remember when, and we won't get into my whole story, but I felt the same way. Like, did not know the word, did not grow up in the church. And when someone asked me to lead a Bible study, I was like, say what? Like, you've got the wrong person.
yeah,
Like, I I am not qualified. I can't, and she looked at me and she said, that's exactly why you are the right person.
yeah,
And so I would
yeah.
say that about you is just your humility and your awareness of, like, if we're going to do this, you're going to have to do this.
Hmm.
It's not going to be through my strength
Yeah.
or talent or
What do they
whatever.
say? They say God doesn't call the equipped; He equips the
That's
called.
right. Yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, just the willingness to step in and
Say
say,
yes.
"Here I am,
Yeah.
send me."
I love it.
Yeah.
So 8 years now you've been
Yeah,
senior pastor?
this is year 8. November of 2018 was when the church voted me into this role, and it's been a wild ride. Yeah,
Yeah. I love it.
it's been fun.
So you got a wife, kids?
I have a wife. This summer have been married 20 years. Have 3 kids. I have a 16-year-old girl, a 14-year-old girl, and a 12-year-old son.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so that's very similar to mine are a couple years older, but 3 teens.
yeah,
I know the season of
oh,
life you're in.
yeah,
So yeah,
yep.
we need prayers for that
Oh
among
yeah,
other things.
oh
So
yeah.
well, I want to ask you a kind of big question, and I probably should have prepped you on this first, but um, there is so much negativity going on in the world. It's just like bombarding us everywhere. But I also know there's so much good, and
Hmm.
God is very much on the move, and so that is what I would just love to know. Like, what are you seeing right now in the church um, of God moving? Like, what is it that is exciting you most about the season that we're in right now?
Sure, that's a great question, and Typically when you look back through history, it's in those times of turmoil, it's in those times of strife and even darkness that
Mhm.
like God's brilliance and brightness and his gospel just
Mhm.
shines forth
Yeah.
and we're seeing that. What excites me the most, I think, is where it's coming from. Like
Mhm.
it's the younger
Yeah.
generation
Mhm.
where we're seeing it.
Mhm.
And I being a pastor, I read a lot of stats. Like I love stats,
Yeah.
and um, the bulk of the movement is
Mhm.
coming from 25 and under.
Mhm.
And what's really interesting about that, it's younger males,
Wow.
which is, I'm not saying anything against male or female,
Yeah.
but it just has not been the case in the
Yeah.
past
Right.
where the young males are leading the charge.
Yeah.
One of the stats I saw was that the most consistent church attenders for the very first time, 25,
Yeah.
I think it was 15 to 25,
Yeah.
outpaces like the 55 plus.
Right.
So like younger people are attending
Yeah.
church more frequently than their grandparents
Yeah.
even. So it's
Mhm.
it's one of those spots in time where you think,
What's going
what's
on?
God up
Yeah.
to?
Yeah.
Because that when we see passion arise in the younger
Mhm.
generation, that's usually where we see revival start to
Yes.
take
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
in different places, and we're seeing it. We're seeing
Yeah.
it on college campuses.
Mhm.
We're seeing it locally here in
Mhm.
Mansfield, even on
Mhm.
our high school campuses.
Mhm.
But we're seeing just a real hunger and a thirst
Yeah.
for truth and for
Yes.
the Lord, which
Yeah.
is amazing thing to see.
Yeah. I have gotten to witness that firsthand and just even in my own kids because they're 22, 21, and 19 and
Hmm.
all in college and seeing what they're experiencing. And it's so encouraging as not just a mom, but just as a human to
Yeah,
see, yeah, this whole generation just on fire for the Lord and like authenticity that they're craving and that they're after and like to really make their faith real and not just something they, you know, are just accepting because it's what's been told to them, but they like, would
yeah,
just really own it for themselves. And yeah, super encouraging for me
yeah,
too.
no doubt.
Well, let's get into this teaching on the Shema. And I want us to kind of, I know it was a whole sermon series and we can't unpack all of it for our listeners, but I really think that our audience has a passion for wanting to live a life of purpose and
Hmm.
to wanting to make an impact and make a difference in the world. And I know one thing that you said in one of your messages.
I always get nervous when people quote something I said in a
You're like,
message.
"Oh, yeah, no, this is good, I
Okay.
promise." But you talked about how, as a pastor, these are kind of some of the reoccurring questions that people bring to you, and that is, "What is God's purpose of me?" Um, and that we're just in this constant pursuit of what is the meaning of life? What does He desire for me? Why do I have breath in my lungs? And how this prayer kind of is the answer to that. And really, you say that this is more than just an ancient prayer. It is a blueprint for life, a way to build rhythms of worship into your
Yeah.
life. And so, give us just the Cliff Notes version of the Shema. I loved how, and we'll link the full video in the description, but you kind of take us on this like visual journey of imagining that we are um, standing at the Jordan and Moses is speaking to us. So,
Hmm.
what is it? What's the context of this prayer?
Yeah. Well, it was a unique point in history, and definitely for God's people. Because Moses knew he was not going to accompany them into God's promised
Hmm.
land, and so if you could imagine, you talk about your kids, but if
Hmm.
you could imagine a day in a place where you were leaving some kind of parting words to
Hmm.
them, um, you get that sense out of what Moses is instructing, and um, really he's leading them to trust fully upon
Mhm.
the Lord
Mhm.
as they enter into this new time,
Mhm.
this season of wandering in the wilderness. Now they will be actually entering into God's promise,
Mhm.
and just the importance of um, really not forgetting
Mhm.
what God has done and who
Mhm.
He is. The Shema, so it was an ancient prayer, and it's a prayer that we say ancient, but like Jewish people even pray it today, sometimes
Mhm.
multiple times a day.
Mhm.
There's even many Christian religions that still repeat and pray this
Mhm.
prayer, and it's a powerful one because it it hits upon your purpose.
Mhm.
We have a knack for trying to make our purpose about a lot of other things, and I think
Mhm.
that's why we always have that question, like, what is God's purpose for
Mhm.
me?
Mhm.
What does He want from me?
Mhm. Like we
And
overcomplicate
we
it.
overcome it, we do, because it's really
Mhm.
simple. Like, He just
Mhm.
wants you to love Him.
Yeah.
He wants you to love Him with all that you are.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so,
let's read it
yeah.
and then you can keep going. So it comes from Deuteronomy 6, um, verse 4. So it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." And so this is Moses speaking this to them before he's about to depart after 40 years of leading them.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
like how you talk about you gave the analogy of it's kind of like going to church camp and how, they had, when you go to church camp, you're like surrounded by your people and with God's truth and you experience him. And, here the Israelites had the pillar of fire and they had the manna and his presence was so evident. And they had their leader, they had Moses, and they're about to kind of enter into a much different scene.
Yeah.
And kind of like when you're at church camp, you're on this mountaintop moment, but you know what you're going back to and how hard that is. And that this was kind of Moses's way of like preparing them
Mhm.
for what was ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I actually, I even think about, because I know camps are a big part of what Allies does
Mhm.
too,
Mhm.
and just hearing some of the stories from Chris
Yeah.
through the years as to
Mhm.
the way God moves and the
Yeah.
things He does at these
Mhm.
camps, and I think really for those kids,
Mhm.
I can't even imagine some of the
Mhm.
things and the scenarios
Yeah.
and life that they're returning to.
Mhm.
And so, like, camp's kind of a good example, but these Israelites had been there for 40 years,
Yeah.
whereas we're at camp for about a week.
Yeah.
We,
This is all
but
they had ever known.
right, but
Yeah.
that experience of the Lord carries
Mhm.
over, and
Mhm.
it kind of meshes the two, because we do, even though it's a week long, these kids that go to camp with allies, they have
Mhm.
a real experience
Mhm.
with the Lord. And sometimes that can be challenging or even disorienting when you
Mhm.
go from that and back into
The reality.
life,
Yeah.
because though you might have changed that week,
Mhm.
the stuff you're returning to is the same.
Same. Yeah.
And so you're coming back to a place, but to know as you go,
Mhm.
um what you are walking back to, the Lord, He is still alone. Like,
Mhm.
and by that we mean there is no other. Like,
Mhm.
all this other stuff that has accrued through the course of your life,
Mhm.
and become that which you serve and that which you give your life towards.
Mhm.
There's something new now. Like,
Mhm.
it is Him and it is Him alone
Mhm.
that we are here for. That is your
Mhm.
purpose.
Yeah.
Is Him.
Yeah.
And life can get real simple
Mhm.
when we just live our lives for Him.
Right. And I think that we do that even on a weekly basis, right? If we go to church, we worship, and we have
Hmm.
encounters with the Lord, and then it's so easy to then leave and then Monday hits and the how do we carry that on with us is I think the big question of
Yeah.
like having that same fervor and that same connection with the Lord, and like knowing that He is our everything.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a challenge for people?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the Shema um, such a powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
I'd call it a tool.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth uh, being a prayer in your tool bag,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, because it goes on from there, from where you stopped
Mm-hmm.
reading, to talk about, as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not talking about when we're in the place of worship.
Mm-hmm.
It's talking about as we're living life,
Mm-hmm.
as you're in your home,
Mm-hmm.
when you're on your road, when you're sitting with your family,
Mm-hmm.
when you're away, you are doing this. You are
Mm-hmm.
seeking to love the Lord with
Mm-hmm.
with all that you are. And that changes things,
Yeah.
because it is a challenge. Like when we are in those moments of worship and
Mm-hmm.
high connectivity,
Mm-hmm.
focus, hyper focus upon the
Mm-hmm.
Lord, it's real easy to um, kind of sit in that. But
Mm-hmm.
then when you remove yourself from those environments, it can get really hard. Like when
Mm-hmm.
you return to work, like
Mm-hmm.
not everybody gets to work at
Yeah.
a church or a
Yeah.
Christian organization
Right.
like Allies. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you get back into like your workplace, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not surrounded by people
Mm-hmm.
that have a shared faith
Yeah.
and a shared worship of the Lord. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what Moses was getting at. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you gotta been with people that are like you for
Mm-hmm.
the past 40 years. You're walking
Mm-hmm.
into a land of people
Mm-hmm.
that worship other gods,
Right.
other things.
Yeah.
It's going to be really important that
Mm-hmm.
your God, He is one. There is
Yeah.
no other.
There's no other.
Don't be swayed by the things of the
Mm-hmm.
people that you're going to encounter.
Right.
Hold fast to the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things you said that I think is so true is that we have this tendency to like compartmentalize our lives, really, and like we have just certain areas that we don't fully surrender. And so when you think of the Shema, it's love the Lord God with everything, like with
Hmm.
your whole heart, with your whole strength, your whole soul. And so I just want to unpack that a little bit more of that whole idea of compartmentalizing, and how do we, um, I guess, have the awareness that is something that we're doing and kind of break free from that.
That's a great question. Because I think the awareness part is probably the hardest
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have a hard time seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've heard multiple people say, like, the hardest person to lead is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of that is because we can see issues and things that are going on in other people so much better than we can honestly
Yeah.
assess
We have blind
our own.
spots.
We
Yeah.
got big blind
Mm-hmm.
spots, and so yeah, I think it's a great question. Yeah, and I don't know that it comes unless you are open and willing to um, allow the Lord to
Mm-hmm.
to search you
Mm-hmm.
and reveal.
Yeah.
One of the things I always pray, and I lead our church and our prayer team especially to pray. It's a simple prayer, but it's, Lord, would you put your divine finger upon the thing in me that does not line up with you?
I love that.
And it's one of those prayers, like, if you're one of those people that are like, I wish God would answer a prayer that I
Mm-hmm.
prayed. If you
Mm-hmm.
pray that prayer, I promise you, He will answer you.
Yeah. It's a
Like, I mean,
yeah.
instantaneously, He will
Mm-hmm.
answer you. God,
Mm-hmm.
put your finger upon the thing in me that's not lined up
I
with
love
you,
that.
and He'll
Yeah.
He'll do it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just being willing to pray that and
Mm-hmm.
to be open and honest with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are the areas that I've kind of over time just kind
Pushed you
of
out.
kind of pushed you out of?
Yeah.
And we all do it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
a pastor,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, this morning, I'm reading in a couple proverbs and journaling at the table,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it was a moment where very clear. Okay, I'm I'm getting rid of all the social media that's on my
Mm.
phone
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
and so I just removed it
Yeah.
because I realized in that moment, this is something that I know is not healthy for me.
Yeah.
I know is not honoring
Mhm.
him
Mhm.
in not only the things that I'm consuming, but the
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
that
The
it's taking
distraction.
up, the
Mhm.
distraction, and and so it's one of those things that I've known
Mhm.
has been there.
Yeah.
And, for several weeks now, I've known it. And it was just this morning, my time in the Word, that
Yeah.
the Lord was like, now,
Now, let's do this. Yeah. Yeah.
let's not kick the can up
Yeah.
now. And so,
So it's
right
really
there.
just being willing to like sit with him and be quiet and listen, and
Hmm.
that in that he reveals areas where
Yeah.
maybe we haven't fully surrendered or that is distracting us from
Yeah.
him.
No doubt.
I met with the coolest lady yesterday, and she said one thing that she always does when she's talking with the Lord is she asks, what let me say this the right way. She says, Lord, what question do you want me to ask you
Mm.
today? And I think that's so powerful because we tend to go to God with all the talking and all the words and
Yeah.
all the agendas. And she's like, every time I ask the Lord, what do you want me to ask you? He tells me, like, and it's not something that she naturally would have thought to ask,
Yeah.
and I think just being willing to um yeah, have your heart open to all the different areas, because another thing you said in the message is like love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And then you go into like specifics, like with your time, with your talents, love the Lord with all your treasures, with your relationships, with your dreams, with your gifts. Like no area of life is withheld.
Yeah.
Like and then you go on to say, like, we fall short of this all the time. Like, this seems like an impossible task. And it is, right? That we are going to fall short. And this is where God's grace just covers us. But
Yeah.
that's where our desire is to live this life just fully surrendered to Him.
Yeah.
I we were talking earlier about just the revival of young people, and I had the privilege of going to the Passion Conference
Mm.
in January. And man, that was such a mountaintop experience for me. I went as a door holder, so as a volunteer, and but got to experience everything that the young people did, and just seeing their passion for the Lord and just for worship and for truth. And it was 3 days of just nonstop worship. And then this morning, I was driving here and one of the songs from Passion came on and it just flooded, and just tears came back to me remembering that moment. And it's like we want to bottle that up, those
Yeah.
experiences up, and
Yeah.
to have them. And I'm like, can we not start every morning with like just Carrie Job like singing over
Hmm.
us and having these worship moments with the Lord? But I think that is our heart's desire, is that
Sure.
we want that to go with us and to not hold anything back.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It reminds me of, the story of Peter, James, and John when they're with the Lord on the Mount of Transfiguration,
Mm-hmm.
and there's that moment where uh, they see the Lord
Mm-hmm.
transfigured before them, and not only that, they see Moses and Elijah there, and Peter's he's having a mountaintop experience
Yeah.
for sure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine whatever
Yeah.
we experience at a passion or
Yeah.
whatever,
Right. It doesn't
like it doesn't
compare.
compare to seeing the
No.
Lord in all his glory and being there.
Yes.
And Peter's response, or his question, I'll probably butcher it, but he's like, "Lord, do you want me to build some tents here for
Mm-hmm.
you guys?" Like, he was wanting to stay,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and the Lord, that's when the Lord Himself spoke from heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the whole premise of that, and we're not meant to live on the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great experience, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we want to be there. We don't ever
Mm-hmm.
want to leave, but
Yep.
life is lived in the valley, and
Yes.
so you need those moments
Mm-hmm.
to carry you through the valley.
Mhm.
It has a way of giving you the strength and
Yeah.
the push and the drive
To live it out.
to live it out.
Yeah.
And
Well, let's talk about that and what this looks like in a tangible way, on the daily, on the Monday and the Tuesday
yeah,
of loving God with all your heart and soul
yeah.
and strength.
I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. If we figure it out, we need to write a book.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
but
a
I'd almost
hard
like I'd
question.
almost go back to the story of Peter on that mount with
Yeah.
Jesus, and when the audible voice of God, it's really the only place in Scripture, one of the only places in Scripture that you hear the audible voice of God
Mhm.
say something to humanity.
Mm.
And so you think about that. You think about, well, what would God say to us?
Mhm.
Out of all the things
Right.
God could have said in that moment,
Mhm.
what he said to Peter, James, and John, he said, "This is my son in whom I am pleased. Listen to him."
Mm.
And it's that story has become one of my favorites. And
Yeah.
we always ask silly questions when we get together. And one of the questions people will ask is, if you were on your deathbed and you had one last thing to say to your
Mhm.
kids,
Mhm.
what would it be? Well, I
Yeah.
think it would be what the Father spoke in that moment.
Yeah.
Listen to Jesus.
Yeah.
And you know, I think when you talk about how do we live a life where it's not compartmentalized, and
Mhm.
every aspect is glorifying and honoring to Him.
Mhm.
You're asking an impossible task, because
Mhm.
we are broken, and we are just naturally bent towards chasing after the things of this world and the
Mhm.
desires of our own heart. But if there's any way we can navigate our day to day and just listen to him,
Mhm.
um, I think we'd be a lot better off.
Yeah.
Now, to do that, you've got to turn down the noise
Distractions. Yeah.
of the world,
Right.
and kind of turn up
Mhm.
the volume of him.
Right.
And so that kind of leads you into talking about all these other practices.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it's important, when pastors and church leaders, and even parents tell their kids, you need to be in God's word.
Mhm.
We're not just saying that because that's what everybody says. That's a
Mhm.
method for turning up the volume
To hear from
of the
him.
Lord,
Mhm.
and turning down the noise of the world.
Yeah.
And every compartment of our life has the different voices and
Yeah.
noise. And so it's a work of learning, how do we in every area listen to what is glorifying and honoring to him,
Mhm.
not just in some,
Yeah.
um, and a
Mhm.
willingness to obey
Yeah.
once we
When you
hear
hear
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did real estate for many years, and when I was first getting into real estate, there was a seasoned agent that said he wanted to give me advice, and he's like, and I knew him from church, and he said, let me just give you some advice. You need to not bring your faith to your business. Like, you need to take, it needs to be separate, because
Yeah.
that's going to turn people off, and that's not, what this is. And I thought, that's like the exact opposite of what I feel like we're called to do. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about him, but I just think our faith can't be a hat that we like take
Yeah.
off, and it needs to be just like a lens through which we're viewing every
Sure.
aspect of our life. And I know there are some places where, yeah, you can't go in and preach the gospel, but that doesn't mean that you can't live the gospel.
Sure.
And
I
um
always get in trouble. I've got a lot of public school teachers
mhm.
in my life, and my sister's one of them.
Mhm.
And I always get in trouble with them because they'll say things like that, like, "Well,
Mhm.
I can't just go in." And my response is, "Well, you can.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you can't. You
Right.
you can.
Mhm.
It's just, are you willing to
Mhm.
walk through what will come from that.
Yeah, the
And
fallout. Mhm.
and so and I know that's easy for me to say
Yeah,
because that's not my livelihood. That's
right.
not my, but I think there's moments in life where we do kind of have to calculate the cost
Mhm.
and decide, okay, well, do I do I call that bluff?
Mhm.
Do I say,
Yeah,
okay, well, I hear that,
yeah,
or maybe a better way is to say, are there other ways that I
yeah.
can weave the gospel into what
Mhm.
I'm doing
Mhm.
to where I'm not outright
Right.
living
Yeah.
a disobedience kind of
Mhm.
thing towards
Mhm.
the authorities that are in
Yeah.
place over me, and so I'm not calling for like a rebellion,
Yeah.
but I think you do have a choice,
Yeah.
and
And that we serve God, not man, and
yeah,
that's who we are seeking to
and I believe
please.
he'll honor that. Like
Yeah.
I really do. I think he's been a God who's he protects his own, he
Mhm.
provides for his own, and I know my God, and if you
Yeah.
step out in faith to honor and
Mhm.
lift his name high, he is
Yeah.
he's going to be there for you too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
true. Well, one thing that you mentioned in your message and is there's actually a place in the New Testament where Jesus quoted the Shema.
Hmm.
So it's Matthew 22. I wanted to pull it up. And I don't know if this is exactly the Shema. There's a word different, but pretty much. So Matthew 22, let's see, verse 36. So this is when um, he was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind." And then he goes on to add, um, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And so I really want us to talk about how the two go hand in hand and how loving God with all your heart, soul, and strength really is connected with also how we love others. Um, and just that connection between our love for God and our love for other people. So, would love your thoughts on that and how that
Yeah.
ties in.
Yeah. When we a couple years ago, we kind of had an outside group come in to the church, really for another purpose, but in the course of that situation, one of the things that this guy asked was um, about our mission statement as a church.
Hmm.
And, it's kind of one of those things like he asked the question and everybody looked around the room and was like, what is our mission statement? Like, right? We didn't
Hmm.
even like, and so it was a season where we are like, okay, let's get real clear,
Hmm.
real simplistic. Like it does
Hmm.
need to be the kind of thing that um, man, if somebody pokes one of my staff, that's what comes out of their mouth. Like
Yeah, it's
everybody's
that
that
sticky.
clear
Yeah,
on what we are, and so
right.
we tried to get really simple. And so you'll see it on our T-shirts, you'll see it on
Hmm.
our promotional stuff. It's love God, love others, and make disciples. Like
Hmm.
that is who we're called to be. But
Hmm.
those first two, loving God with all that we are,
Hmm.
because that's really what the Shema is saying, with
Hmm.
everything that you are,
Hmm.
and loving others. When we love others, we are loving God,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where that that second part of the conversation comes in. Um, we look at it almost like a funnel when we talk about it as a church and as a
Hmm.
staff. um, Loving God will typically think about that happening like in the sanctuary. Like
Hmm.
we naturally think in terms of church, we think
Hmm.
about times of worship and times in the Word. Um, but the reality is when that funnel gets to this next step,
Hmm.
the loving people.
Hmm.
Well, if we're loving people, guess what? We're also loving
Loving God.
God,
Hmm.
and so that's why I think what allies does is so important.
Hmm.
um you can talk all day long about why is it important that we're serving the orphans of the
Mhm.
world.
Mhm.
And we can point to the verses, true religion is this, that you're going to serve the widows and the orphans, and all that's good, but I think the why behind that
Mhm.
is important, because we're talking about um, an action or a group of people that um, there's really no reciprocal, like,
Mhm.
value that you get
Yeah.
in that. And
Mhm.
so I think that's why it is considered by the Lord to be such a pure
Yeah.
act, is that you're serving because you're serving Him.
Yeah.
And so, when we're really loving people as we're called to love people,
Mhm.
I think it's one of those things that is refreshing to our
Yeah.
Lord, that is pleasing to
Yeah.
Him, that glorifies Him,
Mhm.
because it exalts Him,
Yeah.
and it's near to His heart and what He desires.
Right.
Um,
And it's so selfless.
mhm.
Yeah. It's not about what we're going to get out of it, but really um, just sacrificially giving and serving his
Yeah,
children.
yeah. I don't know if I answered the
No, you
question.
totally did. You totally did. I think all three of those are so important. And, I think you can't really skip a step, like
Yeah,
if you love God, but you're not loving others,
yeah,
or, or the other way around, like you're serving, but you're not loving God, then there's, there's a piece that's missing here. And it's so
mhm,
important that we have all three of those.
yeah,
hmm
yeah,
I think a lot of people, when we talk about missions and serving others, we do think that it's all about helping others. And I think it is for sure. But I know that it also goes much beyond that, and how it affects us and what it does to our perspective and our faith when we are able to step outside of ourselves and to give. So I'd love to just know, like, what you've seen personally, and the transformation that can take place when a person does step into loving others in that way through
yeah,
missions.
yeah. Our church, historically, we've been very, very mission oriented, mission
Mm-hmm.
focused. Um, but even in that, it's a conversation we have on the regular. It's a struggle to get everybody involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll typically, when you look at all your mission trips, I could probably write down the names of the people that are probably going to go to that.
Mm-hmm. It's
And,
like the
and
same ones that
yeah, the
go.
same
Yeah.
ones that are going to. But in our battle, just constantly trying to figure out, how do we get more people,
Yeah.
because I know the power of
Yeah.
what happens on that mission field. and
Mm-hmm.
and just like what we talked about, a church camp, though
Mm-hmm.
it's only a week,
Mm-hmm.
can have a huge lasting impact that'll run your entire life.
Yeah.
So too can just a short-term mission trip that you
Mm-hmm.
go on. It can have a way of completely reorienting
Mm-hmm.
the way you think,
Yeah.
the way you process information, the way
Mm-hmm.
you see your value and the
Mm.
importance of um, who God's called you to be and
Yeah.
why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we get in these, I don't know if it's not really a rut, but we get in this bubble that we live in,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it takes being thrust into a completely different culture and
Right.
environment
Mm-hmm.
to kind of shake us up a little
Yeah.
bit,
To wake you up.
and make us a little more sensitive to uh, really who we've been called to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Do you find that serving kind of is a way of um, taking your faith from just this passive thing to really being an act of obedience? Like that's like a bridge, I guess, in your faith.
yeah, yeah. We're 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 about to start a series where we're talking a whole lot about serving.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard it said, you'll never be more like Christ
Mm-hmm.
than when you're serving.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tack onto that, you'll never be closer to
Mm.
Christ than when you're serving.
Yeah.
Um, and part of that's from him, from his teachings.
Yeah.
He pointed out when James and John's mom came and
Mm-hmm.
asked the question,
Mhm.
Lord, can these sons of mine sit at your right and your left when you
Yeah.
enter into your kingdom? Jesus, he said, I don't think you know what you're asking for.
Mm.
Can you guys drink the cup that I'm going to drink? And
Mm.
they thought they could. He said,
Mhm.
oh, you will drink it. But these seats, they're not mine to give you.
Mhm.
They're what the Heavenly Father is going to uh, give to whom He chooses.
Mhm.
And but then he brings all of the disciples together because the rest of them got mad. They're like,
Mhm.
why would y'all
Yeah.
go and do that?
Right.
And he brings them over and he looks at them. He says, listen, like the rest of the world thinks like this.
Yeah.
The rest of the world, they lord authority over everybody.
Mm.
He said, but it's not so in the kingdom.
Mhm.
He said, you want to be great in my kingdom?
Mhm.
You want to know the people that like get the seats of prominence who sit at the
Mhm.
right and the left? You be a servant to
Yeah.
all. And
Mm.
you want to be lifted high? You be a slave to all. Is
Mhm.
the language that he
Mhm.
used, and just kind of showing. And then he reiterated. He said, "Even the Son of Man has come not to be served, but to serve, and to give
Mhm.
his life as a ransom for many." Like it's a kingdom mindset
Yeah.
when we talk about service,
Yeah.
where we truly understand what he values
Mhm.
over what we normally seek after
Right.
and aspire
Yeah.
towards.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the one quality that stands out the most about Jesus is that he served and he
Yeah,
gave and he sacrificed the ultimate, his life for us. And that if we're called to be like him, then that's what we are also called to do is to serve. And, I think our world can become like people can just become so jaded in thinking like that pastors and churches and organizations like allies are just saying that because we want something from you,
yeah,
and the reality is so
yeah,
so different that like we've seen firsthand the life and the fruit that comes from giving and serving. And I think about my own experience getting um to Peru and meet the orphans and to go into these situations and to see the mentors and the life-giving just relationships that they are pouring into these kids. And it truly did change me forever,
yeah,
seeing that and seeing, it's funny. One of the things that impacted me the most through that allies trip that I went on was the mentors themselves, even more so than the children. And it was the joy that these people have in pouring
yeah,
into these kids. Like
yeah,
I have never seen this much passion and energy and commitment. And these are volunteers. These are young people who are showing up month after month to pour into these orphans' lives and just out of the goodness of their heart.
yeah,
And I thought, when I saw it for the first time, I thought, "Oh, this is not gonna continue for 10 days. This is just, our first experience." It continued for the entire every time I saw them, they had that much joy.
yeah.
And that's not a coincidence.
No,
It's really not. And they're walking into the hardest situations and witnessing so much darkness, but it's bringing so much light into not only their life but the child's life too. And so I've seen it firsthand, and I know that you have too. And
yeah. Well, that joy. That's one of that's like the second in the list of the fruits of the spirit.
yeah.
And you're right. Like I think about I've been all over just for the sake of the gospel, but I can remember my wife and I. It was a special time. We got to take a trip together to Guatemala,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what we left with too.
Mm-hmm.
We met a few families that invited us into their home,
Mm.
and their homes. Um, for us, it looked very different
Yeah,
than what we live in.
for sure.
And you're talking about a one room, um, little, almost like what we would look at as like a garden shed
Mm.
kind of thing with
Mm-hmm.
no floor, no windows, no lights. It's dark in there, but they welcome you in, and the joy
Mm.
in their heart and on their
Mhm.
faces, the pride that they have in their
Mhm.
home, and
Mhm.
that you are there with them.
Yeah.
And so there's little like intangible things that you don't realize you're getting into when you go on these mission trips,
Yeah.
that you leave thinking, wow, I allow so many things about this life
Mhm.
kind of play with and try to affect my joy,
Mm.
when really the joy comes from something completely different.
Yeah.
And maybe that's that conversation of us getting happiness and joy mixed up.
Yeah, for sure. Mhm.
Joy is not dependent upon circumstance
Mhm.
or the quality of life even.
Yeah.
It's about the the salvation in your heart,
Mhm.
and knowing the one who has created you.
Mhm.
Um, and when you have that, there's nothing that can take it.
Right.
And you can live in what we might define as some of the most dire of
Situations,
circumstances,
yeah.
and yet that joy just radiates from
Yeah.
us. But you can see it in Peru,
Mhm.
you could see it in Guatemala.
Mhm.
I saw it over in Ethiopia. Like
Mhm.
it's universal.
Yeah.
Like it is something that accompanies the love of Christ.
Mhm.
There is just a joy
Mhm.
that believers have.
Yeah. Yeah, and just the simplicity that sometimes I feel like they need to be doing mission trips to
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
When I was in Peru, I we have a sponsor child there that I got to meet, and she wanted her mom was there, and she wanted us to come to their home. Same situation, similar setup, and just seeing that in itself just puts life in so much perspective. But again, so much they had so much joy in welcoming us to their house. And then the father, they have a guinea pig farm, and they have a strawberry patch, and that's their livelihood.
yeah,
And they wanted to show us their guinea pigs. And then the father leaves for a minute, and we're visiting, and then he calls me over, and he's gone into his strawberry patch and has this basket and has picked the best strawberries
yeah,
and put them in the basket and to
yeah,
give to me. And I'm thinking, I'm here to serve you,
yeah,
and you find so much joy in serving
yeah,
me. I mean, it was, yeah, just this mindset shift of perspective. And
yeah,
it's something that I know as a pastor you want for your people to
yeah.
experience. And we don't have to go to Peru and Guatemala. If we can, go. But I know there are lots of opportunities
Sure.
to do this. And so that's what I'd love for us to talk about next is like for someone who's listening and they're like, I want to get beyond myself. I want to serve in these kinds of ways. Where do I start? And I know for your church, y'all are about to have a mission Sunday coming up, and y'all have lots of mission partners that you work
Mm.
with that are doing kingdom work, and allies being one of those. So I would love to know, first of all, why allies? Like, what is it about allies that your church feels this connection to and wants to point your people to?
Yeah. Well, Allies is special to us for a lot of reasons.
Hmm.
Chris, he was a staff member at
Hmm.
our church when the Lord kind of called him into
Hmm.
the founding of Allies, and so there's been a long standing kind of connection there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so many outside missions. The reason they become important to you a lot of times is the connectivity you have with the people that are behind them.
Yeah.
And um, because kind of to what you alluded to before, um, in the same way that people don't always trust the motives and the
Hmm.
hearts and the desires of a pastor or a
Yeah.
church, that carries over into parachurch type
Yeah.
ministries. And so I think it is important that you know the
Hmm.
people that
Yeah.
are behind the ministry.
Yeah.
And I know Chris, and
Yeah.
I know his heart, and I
Hmm.
know I can trust anybody at my church to go with him,
Yeah.
that I know that the work that they are doing and the way that God is behind it.
Mhm.
And, uh, they have a long track record of taking people to see and to work and to serve in these different
Mhm.
areas. So, from that standpoint, it really is a thing that there's no reservation I have
Mhm.
about sending my folks, because I know anybody that goes with allies is
Mhm.
going to come back a changed person.
Mhm.
And selfishly a better church member, because
Yeah.
they're going to be more on mission
Yeah.
with what Christ is doing
Mhm.
here because they've gone there.
Mhm.
And so, um, you say, why allies? Obviously, I think they're doing the Lord's work. I
Mhm.
think they're serving some of the least of these,
Mhm.
that you read about in Scripture, and that's important because that's close to the heart of the Lord,
Mhm.
and we ought to be about drawing close to the things that are close to his heart.
Yeah.
And so, I believe Allies is, and I trust the leadership
Mhm.
that's in place.
Yeah.
And so, for us, it's one of our main kind of organizations
Yeah.
that we support and encourage people to go and be a
Yeah.
part of.
I love that. So tell us about what is Mission Sunday, and if someone's listening, is this something that they can be a part of, or what could they anticipate with that?
Sure. Well, once a year, we'll. It's kind of crazy when you walk into the foyer. It feels like a carnival kind of thing. I mean, there's booths set up everywhere. We invite all of our mission partners to come and be a part of that day, and it really is like a festival in the foyer, because you'll have people handing things out to you,
Mhm.
giving you things.
Mhm.
Some of the kids that come in almost look like they've got a trick or treat bag, like they're going through
Getting all the
collecting
brochures
all
and
the
mhm.
brochures and the pins and things. But
Mhm.
it's a unique opportunity, because you can tell people about this stuff,
Mhm.
but you're right, they have questions. Well, I don't really know how to do that,
Yeah.
or I don't know what really I would fit in with. And
Mhm.
so it's a day that you can go and just walk through and experience. Here are the ways, here are
Mhm.
the things and the places that God's doing things.
Mhm.
You'll get to see different, maybe if it's a trip you're looking to go on, you'll see
Mhm.
different trips that you can go and be a
Mhm.
part of.
Yeah.
And some of them are evangelistic, where you'll get to actually go out and try to share Christ with
Yeah.
people. There's some that are more service oriented.
Mhm.
Maybe you'll go and build something. Like
Right.
there's something that hopefully, regardless of your gifting or your spiritual maturity, where
Yeah.
you're at with Christ, there'll be something for you, so that you can kind of lean into uh, really how God's wired you,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
passions He's given you, but give you that avenue to go and exercise those
Right.
things.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's not one right way for each person, and I'm a big believer in just do the next right thing. And
yeah,
sometimes that's just see what's out there and, see what God might be tugging on your heart.
hmm,
And, I know when it comes to allies, there's a million different ways to get involved. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm going to always encourage people to go on a trip if you can, but I know that's not feasible for everyone. And,
yeah,
you can pack humanitarian aid that
yeah,
we'll send to orphans. You can pray. We need prayer partners. You can give financially. You can, um, do hygiene drives to help
sure.
us restock the warehouse. So there's so many different ways, and that's just one organization. I know there's so many.
Well, y'all know, like, there's several of our people that are in certain stages of life, like a lot of our senior adults.
Mhm.
Maybe they can't go to Peru,
Right.
but they're here at the
Yeah,
Allies
they are.
facility
Yeah.
faithfully,
Yep.
like every week, and
Hmm.
they're sorting things
Yeah.
and packing things, and they believe in what's going on over there,
Yeah.
but they're more the hands-on
Yeah.
here. And
I know exactly who you're talking
yeah,
about, and these are the coolest people. Like, when they are here every Tuesday morning, and they literally own this place. Like, they take so much ownership in the work that they're doing,
yeah,
um, and just so much passion. Like, and when they're wrapping their socks to put in the box, like, it is to the level of excellence,
yeah,
and I love that, and it just never ceases to amaze me, like, how committed they are and how much, again, joy they seem to get from it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, why would you keep coming week after week doing this
Yeah.
if the Lord is not blessing you in it? And so that speaks again volumes about what the culture of your church and what you guys have instilled there. So, well, I would love you to just leave our listeners with any last encouragement, maybe about the Shema or about how that connects to how we love others.
Yeah. Um, I guess I'd just try to encourage anybody that's listening that um, your walk with Christ, your faith in Christ, though it is a very personal thing, uh, I think it's also something that He expects us to carry with us, and um, it's not something that we are meant to just hide. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's meant to travel with us into every area of our life,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you want to think about the Shema, that's a good thing to dwell on if you have trouble with this, because it does challenge you to carry that forth into every area of your life, and look for those ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, if somebody was asking the question, how do I do that? Or how do I get involved at my church? How do I
Mm-hmm.
get involved in mission work? The first thing I do is tell you, go talk to your pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Go ask them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll know
Yeah.
that they'll have some things. If they don't, then that's a good. You're going to challenge their heart. That's a
Yeah.
good thing to be doing,
Yeah.
to challenge their heart. But if they don't, Allies is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
That's an organization that you could connect with,
Mm-hmm.
and you could check into. Hey, what are you guys up to?
Mm-hmm.
How does somebody like me
Mm-hmm.
help?
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody, regardless of your age or stage in life, there's something that you can do for the Lord.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't have to be going.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be being able to support monetarily.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I found? Everybody can pray.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more valuable to a ministry
Yep.
than covering it in prayer.
100%.
And,
Yep.
and so, I mean, something as significant of that is available to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But just finding out different ways that you can come along and be a part, I think, is huge. And I think it is our role
Mm-hmm.
as followers of Christ
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how do we get involved in the things that the Lord is involved in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like a Henry Blackaby kind of quote. Find
Mm-hmm.
out where God's working and moving in
Mm.
this world and go join him there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, if you find an organization like Allies that God's moving in, go join him. Go
Yeah.
join him there,
Right.
however you can.
Yeah. I love that. Wow. Well, thank you so much for encouraging us and for your wisdom. And
Well,
you have such a gentleness and a humility about you and just a calming effect that I know is the Lord. It's just his peace and just this way of like simplifying. I think we talked about that earlier, but I think we can make our faith so complicated, and I hope that's what this message did for our listeners too, is just um it doesn't have to be so. It's love God with everything,
yeah,
and that in that includes loving his people, and um there's our purpose.
yeah.
So
Thanks for having me.
yeah.
We love Allies, and we love we love
Yeah.
supporting any way we can.
Awesome. Well, Pastor Erik, thank you so much for this conversation. And for all of us, I hope what this conversation reminded you of is just loving God with all your heart and your strength and your soul. It is truly more than a prayer. It's a beautiful prayer, but it can really become like a daily declaration that we can really live by, and I believe will change every aspect of our life. And that when we love him fully, it reshapes us. It shapes how we see people, how we spend our time, and how we respond when we feel God saying go. And so if you're listening and something stirred in you today, I pray and hope that you will not ignore it, and that you'll take that next step. And so maybe your next step is just asking, God, where are you sending me? What is it you're asking me to do? And for some of you, that next step could be engaging in a mission in a tangible way, like what we've talked about today, and just investing in the next generation. And so at Allies, we believe that living sent includes empowering vulnerable children. And we do that through mentorship and by equipping local mentors all around the world who are helping break cycles for children and helping them really believe and dream of a future beyond their current circumstances. And so if you are looking for a practical way to live out some of the things that we've talked about today and to live out that call of just loving God and loving others, then I want to encourage you to go learn more about Allies and consider how you might join us and partner in the work that we're doing. So you can go to alliesyouth.org to learn more. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I pray that in the meantime, that all of us would just continue to do what the Shema has taught us, to just love God with all our heart, soul, and strength, and that we will keep living empowered. See you next time. Today's impact moment comes from Moldova. 14-year-old Georgie has lived in a children's center for several years. His mother works abroad and rarely stays in contact. Like many teenagers trying to figure out what life will look like on their own, Georgie once believed that the most important goal for him was making quick money, no matter the risk. But something began to shift. Through the Allies mentoring program, mentors started walking with him, having real conversations about money and choices and the kind of future that he could build. And little by little, Georgie began to see a different path. Today, he dreams of becoming an auto mechanic. He's learning something far more valuable than fast money. He's learning how to plan, how to take responsibility, how to set goals, and how to build a stable future. At 14 years old, Georgie is standing at one of the most pivotal crossroads of his life. And because a mentor chose to walk beside him, he's stepping forward with a future filled with purpose and possibility. That's one life guided, one future changed, and that is the power of mentorship.